And while the results of the second autopsy have not yet been made public, behind the scenes, the wheels of justice continue to turn. And now we understand that a grand jury is being presented with evidence to consider in this case. I want to welcome in a very special guest now. He's joining us from Columbia, South Carolina, where he practices. He is the attorney for the family of Stephen Smith, Mr. Eric Bland. Eric, good morning to you. Thanks for being on the show. The last time we spoke, you said...
Really good to see you.
Oh, thank you so much. And I think we may have a little bit of a delay. Full disclosure in television, that sometimes happens. Eric, you were telling me last time you were on the show that you were hearing a grand jury was impaneled. And now I understand that is a fact you can confirm for us. Is that right?
I can confirm that there is a grand jury impaneled at this time.
What else can you share with us about that process? Any other details in terms of how far along, what type of evidence you're hearing may be presented, things like that?
I don't have those granular details, but I can report that there are about 5 or 6 individuals that have relevant information as to what happened to Stephen, and that the grand jury has issued subpoenas for information and for testimony. That is about the extent of the knowledge I have, which tells me that they're kind of honing in on a theory on what happened to Stephen, and I would expect that within the next couple months or month, we should hear something as to what the theory of Stephen's death was.
Right. 5 or 6 prospective witnesses. Eric, I'm curious how prosecutors were able to learn of these people. Do you know, were these people that your independent investigation was able to learn about, or these individuals that SLED was able to come into contact with? If you know, please.
I don't have the confirmation on how it happened, but I can guess that it was information on Stephen's phone. I don't know if they were able to crack his tablet. I suspect that they have cracked his iPad tablet. And so I think that information was yielded through electronic means, which then would lead them to other phones and other type of computer information. But there was also information that the South Carolina Highway Patrol had gathered from 2015 to 2021 that named some individuals as having relevant information. And so what I suspect was that SLED, as promised by Chief Keel in March, they put a ton of manpower into this investigation because it is Stephen's time. And I think they may have talked to somebody, and somebody finally offered up some information. You know, cracking Alex Murdaugh and getting that conviction was a big opportunity for people in Hampton County and the Collin County area to see that it's okay to come forward and give information against the Murdaughs, which they did at the trial, and that there aren't repercussions. So I think that people are starting to talk.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense, Eric, because as we know, in the low country of South Carolina, Alec Murdaugh was once a giant and once highly respected, but now that giant has fallen, so to speak, big time. That giant is locked up, and perhaps people aren't afraid like they once were. So that's a very good thing that people feel more comfortable to speak. I am dying to know, Eric, I'm sure you are too, my friend, if investigators have reached out to his counsel to see if he has any information he'd like to offer, because we know he's a witness to this. He was there at the scene where that young man's body was lying in the middle of the road, bleeding out. Curious if you've heard anything about that, Eric.
I have, and they dispute that they were there at the exact time when the body was discovered and that forensic evidence was being gathered. Randy Murdaugh, who's Alex Murdaugh's brother, he has a lawyer who has contended that Randy did show up at the scene, but it was much later with an investigator after the police had already been gone and after Stephen's body had already been gone. Obviously, that contradicts with what Sandy Smith has said. So all that's going to have to be, you know, ferreted out before the Attorney General and the grand jury and who ultimately prosecutes this case.
Oh my gosh, Eric, my jaw has dropped as I'm listening to you, because as we know, the story that, I mean, America, and we have courties all over the world, as you know, that are very interested in this homicide case, and how this young man died. Our version that we were told, was always that the Murdaughs, they showed up while police were there processing the scene, and processing meaning actively gathering evidence and working to try to solve what now appears to be a really heinous crime. Back then, they characterized it as an accidental vehicular homicide. Wow, so now Randy's saying wasn't there when police were there, came after the fact when no one's there. So I wonder if he's disputing even seeing the body there. Curious.
He is, and I think it's easily confirmed by the police who were there. It's one thing to take Sandy's word to say, I saw Randy and possibly Alex at the scene, but certainly the first responders are going to be able to confirm or deny that Randy or Alex or both of them were at the scene at the time that the evidence was being gathered. So I'm anxious to hear who's right and who's wrong. Both can't be right.
Yeah, exactly, Eric. Curious if Alec Murdaugh has taken a position on this. Have you heard, is he saying the same thing as Randy is?
No, I don't know what Alex's position is. I'm not sure if they're, he's given any information. According to Harpootlian, he has been cooperating with the federal authorities at least, but I don't know if he's cooperating on the financial crimes or on other type of possible crimes that others may have committed, whether he's naming other lawyers, politicians, judges, whatever. But, Alex opening his mouth is basically lies start coming out. So until whatever he says can be independently confirmed, either by documents or other witnesses, we have to take whatever Alex Murdaugh says, and his lawyers for that matter, with a grain of salt.
Appreciate it, Eric. Eric, if you can, if you're able to share with us, are you able to share with us anything about the results of the second independent autopsy that was done and largely run by one of the members of your team?
Coincidentally, I'm supposed to get the actual written report today. I heard from Dr. Dan Schultz yesterday, who did the autopsy, and he says his written report is complete and I should get it today. I think he has transmitted his oral results to SLED. Chief Keel has asked that I not reveal that information, but what I can reveal is it was a full and complete autopsy that was done, notwithstanding the fact that his vault had been compromised and that water infiltrated the vault and into the coffin. Stephen's body really was in such good condition, even after 8 years, that the pathologists and the anthropologists were able to do a full, complete autopsy, and any questions that they had were answered by what they saw on Stephen.
Oh, Eric, that's a beautiful thing in the quest for justice for Stephen Smith's family. We're looking at Sandy Smith, Stephen's mother, in these videos that we're playing right now. How's she doing today?
She's doing good. She, you watch these survivors grow during this type of process, Julie. They, originally they're reticent about getting in front of the camera and speaking about private family matters. But as this matter has gone forward and she's given more interviews, you see her grow as a real heroine for her family, and especially Stephen, to get answers. She's not looking for somebody to be criminally charged. She just wants answers on what happened to Stephen. Do I think that somebody woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and said, well, I'm going to just go out on a dark country road and see if somebody's walking and I'm going to just, kill him? No, I don't think that happened. I think what ended up happening is the people or persons who injured and killed Stephen, whether they intended to kill him or they intended to scare him, they knew that he was on that road, and maybe they misjudged whatever they used to hit him with or scare him. Maybe they didn't intend to, but at a minimum, what you have is somebody now knows that if they thought they hit a deer or they thought that they didn't kill Stephen or they just were trying to scare him, that Stephen did die, and somebody has not come forward and has information on how that happened, and now it becomes a crime. That's the least of what could happen and be an explanation. The most is obviously he was intentionally killed, and he was put on the road.
Right, Eric. You know, in either way, if that is the case under either, you know, set of analysis that you used, you know, we have homicide charges, we have criminal homicide charges, because if it was an intended assault but a death flowed therefrom, that's a felony murder. Or if it's the outright setting out to do somebody such harm as you take their life, you know, it's a first degree. This is very, very bad if that is what happened to that young man with his whole life ahead of him. Eric Bland, it is always such a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you for sharing everything that you're able to today. We look forward to talking with you when those autopsy results come back. Will you please join us again, Eric?
Well, I love your glasses, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. My allergies are bothering me, so time to time when they come on, they help me see things a little better. Thank you so much, Eric. Take good care.